Okay, so we've got our next Q&A, and we've been lucky enough to get a gentleman who's travelled around the northwest playing football, now ended up in South Wales. So played season for us 2008, 2009, Neil Roberts. Thanks very much for taking part, mate. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me.
So we're just going to really just have a quick chat about your career, what you're up to now and stuff like that, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. No tough questions.
I'll try not to. So you started out at Wrexham. How old were you when you started out at Wrexham, and then sort of where did that take you?
Yeah, I came through the youth ranks at Wrexham right from a young age, through the schoolboy years, under 9 through to under 16. Obviously, being a local boy, just kind of as a fan as well, stood on the cop and watched some of the games that obviously some of the bigger games over the years, the Arsenal game, the West Ham game, a few standout games in the league as well, and always wanted to play for my hometown. And then fortunately, during that last year of 16s, I was informed that I managed to get a 2-year YTS, as it was called then.
Wow. Is that your sort of first professional contract then? Is that how it was worded then?
Well, yeah. I mean, nowadays it's the 2-year scholarship that young players sign, so it's exactly the same, except back then it was very much about a lot more of the kind of working aspects of the club. So you would have jobs as much as you would train and play games as well. So it was a little bit old school, shall we say, in terms of that. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was brilliant. I had I'd kind of come through the school years and managed to get myself this 2-year YTS. And the next thing to kind of focus on then was trying to establish myself and make an impression on the powers that be there.
Was it always your dream to play football for a living when you were younger then, or did you know it was always going to work out, or did you always sort of have other plans, or how did it work out?
No, never really knew. Same as anyone, you don't know what's going to happen with football, whether it be injuries or just generally people's opinion, because that's what it boils down to. You can be the best young player that you can possibly be, but if somebody doesn't think you're the right fit, or perhaps there's somebody above you who they believe is better, then you don't get the opportunity. So it's about opinions, it's about luck, and I think what I did have was a really kind of strong belief in myself, but also the work ethic that comes with it. I was probably not the most, what should we say, technically gifted. I wasn't blessed with blistering pace or anything like that, far from it. But what I did have was kind of the appetite to work hard and, to kind of earn everything that I achieved.
Brilliant. So you're at Wrexham. How long were you at Wrexham for, and where did you go beyond that then? Yeah,
so I did my 2-year scholarship with the club, and then I was offered a 1-year professional deal, which was kind of in the balance, to be honest, because I know there were a few conflicting opinions on myself. Unfortunately, I was given the opportunity. So Brian Flynn was the manager at the time, coaching staff, Kevin Reeves and Joey Jones, and the late Cliff Sear was also involved at the youth level. It was a big influence on me personally. And I managed to get that 1-year pro contract offer, and then towards the end of that first year, which was a tough year for me personally, I did a loan move. So I managed to get out on loan, and I think the phrase used was that I needed maybe a little bit of toughening up. So I came down into the Welsh League and played a couple of games for Bangor City, and that was kind of a turning point for me, because I think it was a realization that I did need to do a lot more to earn the next contract. So it was, and thankfully that turned out well, and I managed to get another year after that extension.
Did you score any goals for Bangor?
No, No, I never. Yeah, I know there's a rivalry, but I no, listen, it was an eye opener for me. It really did do the job, and I think Wrexham were right in sending me there. And it happens sometimes that you need a little bit of a step back because it was there level wise, but it did kind of make me feel that I'm going to give this a real everything I've got, and then there's no regrets then, so to speak. Yeah. So thankfully managed to come back to Wrexham and finish the season well. Managed to get on in the last game of the season against Chesterfield for a substitute, which was my first kind of appearance. And then after that season, after it kind of took off really.
Brilliant. And then where did you move on to after your time at Wrexham then? How did your next move come about after that?
Yeah, well, I was I moved on to Wigan after Wrexham. So I'd had kind of 2.5, 3 years really of being in or around the first team at Wrexham, and fantastic times, great learning curve. I was a young player in an experienced dressing room, but I enjoyed that side of it, the responsibility, if you like, with players like Andy Marriott in goal, Mark Cartwright after that, Tony Humes and Brian Carey at the back, Phil Hardy, Gareth Owen in midfield with Peter Ward, Kevin Russell, and then up front, you had the likes of Carl Connolly, Dean Spink, and Ian Rush at the end of his career. So it was an amazing opportunity for me to kind of, I don't know, probably gain more experience than what a lot of young lads do at that age, coming into a squad of senior pros really. So I moved on to Wigan. So Wigan took a punt on me, and I signed there in the February 2000, I think it was. And went on to have a really enjoyable kind of 4 seasons at Wigan. When I joined there, it was a club that were desperate for promotion out of the division, and the chairman himself, Dave Whelan, had invested a lot of money. The club itself was kind of at a point where I think it was either it was only one way it was going to go. The amount of money that he'd invested, whether it be in the stadium itself, the football ground, the infrastructure, and the team itself, it was full of talent. It was full of experience and players that have come down from higher levels to play. So I think it was the 3rd season that I was there. We'd been in the playoffs 2 seasons on the run. And then we finally achieved it. In that 3rd season, I was with them, and we got promotion to what is now the Championship.
Brilliant. Who were some of the players in that squad? I'd imagine there were some characters.
Yeah, there was a lot of characters. There was probably, towards the end, the biggest character that a lot of people will know is obviously Jimmy Bullard, who's gone on to do kind of, if you like, his television life experiences, if you like, with Soccer AM, and he's done really well, very successful, but he was a fantastic footballer at the same time. So what you see now with Jimmy is exactly how he was then, just in a different environment. Yeah. So he was one of a number. There were likes of Andy Liddell, Nicky Eden, Ariane Dazoo, Peter Beagrie, Cal Bradshaw, Darren Sheridan, Roberto Martinez, numerous players, Simon Howarth, numerous players that have played at a higher level, like I say, and then kind of moved on to Wigan to try and, join the sort of success that was on the way. And then, a lot of those players I've just mentioned, they were kind of part of the journey. And then towards the last couple of seasons that I was in there was a new kind of breed as well. We were fortunate to see Leighton Baines come through the youth system. So that was great to see young Leighton coming through, and he went on to have a fabulous career with Everton. And was a super talented kid. Could literally, there was no surprise that he did what he did. And then a number of players kind of joined, the likes of Alan Mann, Lee McCulloch, Gary Teal, John Filan, the goalkeeper. Yeah. They were kind of the mainstay, if you like, of why they kind of moved, if you like, up another level. Jason Roberts, Nathan Ellington, into the Premier League sort of thing. So that was towards the end of my time there, but some fantastic players and great memories from especially the championship winning season.
After Wigan, you had a couple of loan spells, did you? Was that during your last year at Wigan?
During my time at Wigan, I went out to Hull City. Was the first one. I went there for a month, which again was probably a point in my career that I just needed to kind of, in many ways, get myself going again. I'd had a couple of niggles at Wigan, a few problems with my ankle, which seemed to be a reoccurring issue. So I went to Hull, and again, similar to my Wrexham experiences, I came back from Hull and then played more games than I had done previously. So it was maybe certain points in my career that I needed that little, maybe kick up the backside, for want of a better phrase, to kind of get myself going again. And it was Hull was a good experience for me. And then towards the end of my time at Wigan, in fact, right at the end, I went out to Bradford City as well.
Brilliant.
So I did a month there.
Would you encourage players then to go and have, if they're not getting game time and stuff like that, would you encourage players to go and have a sort of change of scenery to see if they can sort of reinvigorate their own career a little bit?
Yeah, I would, for sure. I think it's important that it's the right place that they're going to. You can't ever guarantee that you'll go on loan and that you'll play. At least you shouldn't be able to do that. I think it's, and I think that's all about the individual. So it has to be right for the individual. I would definitely encourage it, especially at the, between the ages of probably 18 to 20. I think there's not really a bad loan move that you can do, because again, you're going from an environment that perhaps is not as focused on the winning side of things. You're coming from a development arena, and I think it just adds another part to your skill set and your character and your experience, to be around experienced pros, and again, playing against men rather than the youth football. As good as it is, there's a definite step up in levels and experience that's needed for men's football.
Brilliant. And then, so straight from Bradford to Doncaster, was it?
Yeah, well, I went back to Wigan, and I had the option of either signing for Bradford or Doncaster, who would come in for me. And I went over to Doncaster. I met with Dave Penny, who was the manager at the time, and John Ryan, the chairman. And in many ways similar to the clubs I'd been at previous. It was a great little club, family orientated. Some good players. They'd come through the leagues, like Wigan had, and I just bought into it, and it was the right move at the right time. Had to uproot the family and make the move over to South Yorkshire, and it was a very enjoyable one, and I'm kind of I look back on Doncaster with a lot of fondness. I've still got good friends there, and it was a great club. It still is, and it's nice to see them holding their own in League One as well.
Brilliant. And then that saw your return back to Wrexham, was it, after Doncaster?
I did about it was about 18 months, I guess, that I did at Doncaster, and then my family was growing. I had a young daughter and another one on the way, and it was just important to have, if you like, a bit more of a support network around me, and just made the move from personal reasons more than anything. I think football wise, I enjoyed my time at Donny. It was great people, great club, like I say, and it was a personal one to be back home nearer the family. Brilliant. So back to Wrexham, yeah.
So then 2006 to 2008, back at Wrexham?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Unfortunately, again, I signed under Dennis Smith, who was manager at the time, with Kevin Russell as assistant. And it didn't pan out how we'd kind of hoped or planned and envisioned. And unfortunately, Dennis was relieved of his duties. And it was a difficult period being back at the club then, because again, we massively underperformed. It was just we escaped on the last day, as it's been well documented, and then the following season found ourselves in a similar but ultimately worse position. That was a really difficult one. The season under Dennis Smith previously had started very well, and we had a good squad. We lost a couple of players, unfortunately, like Dennis Lawrence at the back, and he moved on. And I think, I think it was a case of really not learning from our lessons the previous season when we went down. So I think, hindsight's a great thing, but there's probably lots of things that contributed to it. But I think the be all and end all of it is that the players didn't, to a T, all of us didn't perform to the levels that we should have. And sadly, it's that's where they are today, still not being able to get back in the league. And it's a big regret and frustration of mine from my career.
Well, they may make it back into the league soon. Then I've got a bit more investment.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, hopefully.
Eventually. So then 2008 led you to come to play at Bellevue for a season. How did that move come about? Yeah, is a high profile.
Well, it was just I think it was just the proactiveness of the people involved at the football club. Paul Higginson up at senior level, and then Peter Parry alongside him. They did the sell really, which was kind of huge for me. And then the management staff, in Alan Bickerstaff and Oshan and Jamie Digwood at the time was there. They told me what they wanted to do. It was a case of, they wanted me to come in and help support that. And I'm really, really glad I did. It was a super successful season for everyone connected with the club. And, we had some good fun along the way. The squad was littered with quality from back to front, and all good lads as well. I think that's probably the biggest thing for me, is that I've been very fortunate wherever I've played that the camaraderie with the rest of the players has been fantastic. And I think team spirit goes a long way, especially when when you kind of I don't think we were expected to win the league like we did. It was kind of there was a lot of talk about the competition from TNS, obviously Llanelli that year. There was a number of good teams, and we just kind of, I feel, quietly went about our business, and we did our talking on the pitch, so to speak. And it was a great day when we finally kind of got to lift the trophy.
Who was in your team then at Rhyl that season?
Well, again, we had the likes of Lee Kendall in goal. At the back, Greg Stones, Mark Connolly, Greg Strong. We had Chris Roberts as left back, Paul O'Neill. Yeah. And then in the middle of the park, you had the likes of Gareth Owen, Gareth Wilson. We've got we had on the wing Craig. Just trying to think now, Matty Williams, Jamie Reid, Josh Johnson, Danny Williams, great signing from Wrexham, kind of followed me to join Rhyl. And yeah, it was just like whatever team you put out, you're always guaranteed a performance, so to speak. And Jimmy Kelly was still there. Just got all the names flashing back to me now. So, but a great bunch of lads, and great, George Oran obviously played a big part in that, as well as being captain. So yeah, it was a great squad.
Brilliant. And then, so obviously, Rhyl for a season. You moved on to Man City then, in more of a sort of a job, really, wasn't it, rather than playing?
Yeah, I kind of finally stepped away from playing into the real world, and I was offered a role at Manchester City. In many ways, working behind the scenes at the academy. So there was a project that the new owners had wanted to run with, and I was brought in as project manager to run that, which was a development concept from the owners to improve football levels in the UAE. So we brought a number of young Emirati footballers over to the UK on a football and education pathway, if you like, and a 3-year program. So I headed that up for Manchester City, and enjoyed every minute. It was a bit of a baptism of fire, kind of coming from the football playing days. However, it was a really interesting opportunity for me, and obviously had to be a big opportunity for me to turn down kind of further opportunities. I still had 2 years left at Rhyl to kind of try and emulate what we'd done the season previous. But I just felt, again, I'm a big believer in opportunities, taking them when they arise, and that was one that was too good to turn down, really.
Yeah. So how long did you spend at City? Was it 8 years in total you spent there?
Yeah, in total, yeah. So I kind of headed up that project for 3 years, but during my time doing that, I was then kind of responsible for bringing in, if you like, new people to take over, whether it be the coaching side of it or the operations aspect. So a couple of really good friends of mine now, Simon Davis, ex-Manchester United player who played at Rhyl. So I brought him in. He then kind of took over the reins from myself. So that enabled me to move into a more mainstream role within the academy at Manchester City, which was heading up the operations department there, which was everything, if you think about, that goes on behind the scenes. So whether it be education, welfare of players, the administration department, so all of those kind of things that go unnoticed at football clubs. It was working within that side of things, which was great, and I loved it. Seeing some of the talent coming through as well at the same time was kind of a bonus part of it, really, and working with those players, the likes of Phil Foden and Jadon Sancho. It was really special times, I think, and there's numbers of players coming through now at that academy that I'm sure, as difficult it is to come through the system there, they'll all have playing careers elsewhere, I'm sure. So that was my last kind of role there. Was back in 2016. I think I changed roles to become head of recruitment, youth recruitment, which I really enjoyed. So that kind of I did that for a couple of years, and then finished in June 2018.
Brilliant. Then what happened then? Where did you go? What was your next move from there?
Well, that was at a point in my life where I just decided to take some time out from football. So I did that for a little while, but soon got kind of itchy feet, and found myself, if you like, working within a small business that I'd set up that was predominantly aimed at working with talented footballers in the main, and working with brands for those young players. So sporting brands, as an example, I did a little bit of work with Adidas and New Balance, and that was all about kind of identifying young up and coming talent that they might want to work with in the future. So that was again just a different experience, different time spent working in the commercial side of things rather than the kind of mainstream football. So, which then brought me up to present day and an opportunity to work where I am, where I sit today at Swansea City Academy.
So, what role have you taken at Swansea, and how long have you been there?
Yeah, so I've been in the role literally 2 weeks. So I'm heading up the national recruitment for 16 to 21-year-olds for the academy. So yeah, it's a great opportunity. It's a club that again I've always known of. Obviously being Welsh for one, but played against them back in the day as well. But also recognising their history with development of young players, and they've been very successful with it. And I just felt, given the manager that's in situ at the moment, Steve Cooper, his kind of record and his history of working with young players, that it was a good time to join. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity. The first team are in an exciting position as it sits at the moment, with a championship kind of race for the automatic and playoff spots. So hopefully as an academy we can continue where others have left off, and bring some players through the system.
Brilliant. That's all my sort of normal questions. I've got some quick fire questions, if that's all right. Just go through them.
Yeah, absolutely.
With everyone I see. So, Dad, some of them are obvious for people that know who you are, but if they don't know you, they'll be learning something. So what position did you play throughout your career?
So centre forward in the main, and then towards the end of my career at Wrexham, I played the last kind of 6 months to 6 to 10 months in centre midfield. Brilliant.
What football club did you support when you were growing up?
Well, aside from Wrexham, if I was picking a Premier League team, it was always Liverpool. So I've been a diehard Liverpool fan forever, really. So them and Wrexham.
Brilliant. Right, this way gets a bit more interesting. So, best play that you've ever played with?
Again, I'd probably have to go to my Welsh days for that, just because I was surrounded by Premier League players, and unfortunately at a club level, I never got to play in the Premier League. So from the Welsh setup, from a training perspective, it'd have to be Ryan Giggs. Just kind of being on the same pitch as him was kind of unbelievable, and enjoyed every minute of that. Just watching him and spending time with him, asking him questions, and probably annoying him a little bit too much. But then playing wise, the likes of there's probably three that I'll mention, but I think a similar age to myself was Craig Bellamy. Again, always looked at him as being somebody that just had everything in terms of ability wise, and he obviously went on to much bigger and better things, and fully deserved, because he had a few bad injuries along the way. John Hartson, he was just phenomenal for me to be in and around John. Just same positions, similar in many ways in terms of how I tried to base my game on being a target man like he was, but he had so much more to his game. And again, the character of the man spoke for me. I'm still in touch with him now, and he was just immense for me. It was like a proper kind of hero stuff, I think, with John. And then again, I have to mention him, is Gary Speed. Gary kind of took me under his wing when I did come into the squads, and I'll be forever grateful for everything that Gary did for me, and again, miss him dearly. But what an unbelievable player at the same time. As much as everything else, he could do anything. And as a leader, what he did for the Welsh first team, when he went not only as a player, but then he went behind the scenes, he just kind of he was part of the transformation, so what they are today.
Brilliant. Best player that you've ever played against?
Well, Paul Gascoigne, I have to say. So played against Middlesbrough at Wrexham. And again, probably not because it was one of his standout performances, but just because of who he was and what he was able to do. You know, he's probably the best English footballer that's been. So definitely Paul Gascoigne.
Best manager that you played under, or best manager or the manager that got the most out of you?
I'd have to say Brian Flynn in terms of the manager that got the most out of me, because he genuinely did. He knew me as a person as much as a player, and I think he, you know, I owe an awful lot to Brian, and you know, Joey Jones in particular from a coaching perspective as well. But Brian gave me my chance, and you know, I'll be forever grateful for him. He was a great man manager, and kind of knew what made you tick, and perhaps what you need when you needed a little bit of a rocket as well. You know, he knew how to give them. I had a few of them in my time with him. So yeah, absolutely, Brian Flynn.
Brilliant. Where's your favourite stadium that you've ever played at?
Yeah, I'd go back to saying the racecourse when it's full. You know, my hometown club. You know, a lot of players will say some of the bigger stadiums that they played at, the new ones. But I'm kind of old school in that respect. I like the kind of, you know, when the Cop is full, you know, the atmosphere that created, and just having like family and friends there as well. Because yes, you can play at some lovely stadiums, but when you've got all your mates in the crowd as well that are willing you on, then that makes a massive difference and really important to me.
What would you still like to achieve in football? So obviously you're back in it now, aren't you? So what would you like to achieve?
Yeah. I think I'd like to obviously achieve some success in the role I'm in now, in terms of you know, developing a really kind of forward thinking and you know, successful department here at Swansea. There's been a lot of players, like I say, historically that have come through. So my role really is to try and add to that success that they've had already, and try and complement the skill sets of the staff that are in place already. So I think in the short term, it's to help improve and increase the standards that are here already. I think long term, from a football perspective, you know, I'd like to continue my involvement in some form around a first team. So at this moment in time, I'm working at youth level. I think perhaps I'd like to spend a few years obviously doing that and trying to be the best that I can be at youth level from a scouting and recruitment perspective. But then I do have aspirations to move in and around the first team environment as well. Not as a coach, but perhaps in some capacity, whether that be first team recruitment or kind of in and around working day to day with a manager, perhaps. I'm not sure what that looks like. Brilliant.
Biggest achievement in life?
Well, I've got 3 young children, so absolutely, it's the 3 of them. You know, I've got 3 beautiful kids, 2 girls and a boy, and yeah, they're by far and away my biggest achievement.
Brilliant. Favorite meal?
Sunday roast at my mum's. Always go back where I can for a Sunday roast back at my mum's. So typical lad, I guess, that one.
Brilliant. Favorite holiday destination?
Probably Tenerife. My kids love it there. I love it there. More than anything, we go to the water park every day. I think we're there, so I think that's why they like going there. There's an unbelievable water park. So yeah, I'd probably say Tenerife.
Brilliant. And then, strange, I don't normally ask this, but obviously because you've played quite a long time professionally, if you could give yourself one piece of advice when you were sort of say 16, what would it be?
That's a great question. I think I'd probably educate myself on learning to deal with failure a bit better, and the negative side of the game. So I think that mental toughness, I think they call it now. I think that's something that is huge for young men and women in the game. That, you know, football's, you know, it's a cliche, but football's a roller coaster. You know, you'll have great times, but you will have really tough times as well. And I think probably one thing I did is I parked a lot of those things and didn't really deal with them at the moment where I should have dealt with them, and that always catches up with you. It always catches up with you. So I think, I think that's definitely the biggest piece of advice I would give, is both in football life and in personal as well, is deal with them things as they happen rather than park them and try to move on, sort of thing. So you know, it's a fantastic career if you can manage to stay in football for a long time. But I think it's just so important along the way to kind of manage your mental strength as well.
Is that one of the big challenges, dealing with the negativity, whether it be from the sideline? Obviously, social media now, you know, players can take a real sort of, can get a real hard time, you know, and obviously there's no way that you can react, but you've got to, you've got to try and deal with it, ignore it. How is that as a player? Is it a real challenge?
Yeah, I think, in fairness, I never had to deal with the social media element as much as current players do. However, you know, that was starting to raise its kind of head towards the end of my career, sort of thing, or the mid-career towards the end. But I just think it's a huge part of the game, you know. Like I said at the very start, you know, football's about opinions. You know, it's about luck as well. There's a lot of luck involved in football, and, you know, perhaps having a good game at the right time when somebody's watching, or, you know, training well when the manager looks over in a training session. It's just there's so many factors and facets to it that, but that mental side of it is huge, especially nowadays with the current young footballers. So, I mean, for me, I think guidance-wise, advice-wise, there's lots of people, experienced players that are still in football that will be in and around them. So I would always say, ask questions. There's no silly questions. Ask advice. You know, reach out to people if you're struggling with one thing or another. And again, you know, it's a really tough kind of road to follow. But what is even tougher? Yes, it's hard getting there. But I think that consistency bit that I mentioned before, and staying at the level, and not dropping off and not being affected by, like you say, somebody from the crowd shouting on something, reading something on social media. You know, it's about kind of building up your resilience, and that's not easy to do, but there are ways and means to be able to do it. And I think that's a huge part of football now, and probably why you see the likes of Ronaldo and the Messis of the world. You know, they've got huge, you know, not only self-belief, but that kind of ability to block out and to kind of believe in themselves, to perform at the highest level and for so long. So, it's huge.
Brilliant. And that's everything I've got for you, Neil. So thank you very much. Really appreciate spending the time with us to do it.
It's a pleasure, and absolutely. Yeah, good luck to everyone at Rhyl for what will be next season now, I guess. So good luck to you all.